everybody who's been waiting. So this is the Select Board meeting of Monday, October 4th, 2021. We are welcoming Beth Rudolph to our first meeting as our acting town manager. Welcome. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks.
We will be having meetings on Monday, the 18th, and Monday, the 25th of October, and then a very short meeting, and we anticipate right before town meeting starts on November 1st. But that meeting will be short. It'll be 6:30 to 7, and town meeting will start at 7. Since it's the first meeting in October, we typically do a land acknowledgement, and I guess Mariano's, are you ready to do that?
Yes, so we acknowledge that we're meeting on the ancestral homeland of the Massachusetts people who lived here for thousands of years before European colonists began arriving about 1630. In the 1600s, the Massachusetts were led by the Sangswa of Missisquoi, called the Squaxacan by the colonists, who led her people through epidemics, wars, and displacement. We acknowledge that Winchester exists within a region where lands were taken under unjust and violent circumstances, causing a forced relocation that continues to have harmful effects on Native communities. As part of the town government of Winchester, we recognize our responsibility now to be good stewards of this land, and we acknowledge that Massachusetts, Wampanoag, and other Indigenous people from across the country currently live in Winchester and throughout the state and contribute to our community in myriad ways.
Thank you. So I do not have a chair report. I don't think there are any committee updates. So why don't we, and as I understand it, we have no donations tonight. So in the interest of time, why don't we move just into the town manager's report?
Thank you. I'll throw it up here on the screen very quickly. Patty, if you wouldn't mind enabling sharing. So thank you very much. I'm very excited to be here. My first meeting as acting town manager, and thank the board, and excited to serve the community in this role. I just wanted to go quickly through a few updates. I know we're a little bit behind, so I won't get too in detail. The town, as previously reported, is going to receive approximately $6.8 million in ARPA funding. Former town manager Lisa Wong solicited funding proposals from a variety of town departments and community organizations before she left. And we have approximately 50 proposals, not including from the school department, who we expect to be getting shortly. So I would ask that the board docket this item for a future meeting so that we can discuss process in terms of reviewing those proposals. Waterfield Task Force is an agenda item coming up. Just want to note that the task force has scheduled 2 additional meetings, one for this Friday, October 8th at 9 a.m. and next week at 1 p.m. Time meeting is scheduled for November 1st. Note the earlier start time of 7 p.m. this year. Warrant will be mailed out to town meeting members on October 15th. Quickly, just some key construction updates. DPW is starting water main flushing on the east side system today, although it may be put off today because of the poor weather. Construction at the intersection of Waterfield Road and Church Street is expected to start next week, so folks will probably see some disruption there. That project is expected to last approximately 2 months, and we are asking the Chamber of Commerce to help us notify the business community there. And also wanted to mention that tomorrow the town is meeting with the MSBA to select an architect for the school feasibility study. Next, because of the 2020 federal census, there have been some updates that are required to the town's precinct map. So the engineering department is working with the town clerk right now to make those updates. And I think that'll be back before the board. In terms of personnel, that we'll be welcoming our new HR director, Mike Town, and our new sustainability director, Ken Pruitt, next, Tuesday. So Tuesday, October 12th. And then just wanted to mention quickly, COVID testing. Board of Health is still has open COVID tests in town. The next one is scheduled for Thursday, October 7th from 2 to 4 p.m. And also it is flu clinic season. So the flu clinics are open, registration is open for the public schools and will be opening this week for the public flu clinics also to be held. And with that, I should note this ribbon cutting ceremony, I believe, has been rescheduled from this Wednesday to a date to be determined next week. With that, happy to take any questions from the board.
Anybody? Go ahead.
Sorry, that's just with respect to Waterfield and Church. It would be great if Dr. Hackett could send an email out to the school community. I know that's a thorough way for the middle school drop off, just so people are aware of that for the next 2 months.
Yep, that's a great idea. Thank you.
Thanks.
Anybody else? Great. Thank you, Beth.
Thank you.
So just.
Do you want me to do the appointment while I'm?
Oh, yeah.
Sorry.
Appointment.
Yeah.
Yes, I'm sorry.
That's okay. So in accordance with section 4-2B of the town charter, I have made the following regular full-time appointment in the recreation department, principal clerk, to Melissa Ross of Billerica. And I respectfully request that the board vote to waive the customary 15-day appointment. Thank you.
I move that we waive the customary 15-day appointment period for Melissa Ross of Billerica for principal clerk in the recreation department.
Second.
Roll call vote. Mike?
Yes.
Rich?
Yes.
Mariano?
Yes.
And I vote yes as well.
Thank you.
I guess that is it. Just going down the list, we will have public comment later on in the session in connection with the agenda items for the Waterfield Lot and the special town meeting. That public comment session will be about 15 minutes. And now I guess we have the controller's report, which will be a report on our OPEB, an OPEB update, Stacy.
Hi, good evening, everybody. Here with us tonight is Parker Elmore, and I believe Andrew Taggart might be joining him. Patty, can you elevate them as panelists, please?
Yes. And who's the other? Oh, Andrew. I see Andrew. Okay. Okay.
Ready to go, Stacy, now?
Go for it.
Okay, fair enough. Let me share a screen here.
Yeah, thank you for joining us.
Oh, no, you're very welcome. And all right, hopefully you guys can see a screen here. So we'll go relatively quickly, but if you have questions, just speak up at any time.
I'm not seeing a screen.
It's
sorry.
not shared.
All right, let's try that again. Doesn't do much good if you don't hit the share button. It's all well and
Yep,
good.
there we go.
There we go. So,
Looks better. Yep, thank you.
all right, so in theory, you guys can see that screen now, right? So.
Yep,
right.
you got it.
All right, so we'll give you the quick 30-second overview about the firm because I know we're tight on time. But again, speak up anytime and I'll do whatever I can. So we've been around since 1998. We work in 37 clients, Europe, South America, Australia. I spend a lot of time on planes, short answer. So the key stuff is, what happened year over year. So, last year liabilities were about $112 million. This year they're $123 million, which sounds worse than it is. I mean, your experience was about 1% worse than what we would have expected. But your liabilities are expected to go up by about $5 million a year just by the passage of time. As people get a little bit older, people get a little bit closer to retirement, so the liabilities are going to go up by $5 million just due to time. There's another $5 million change from an assumption change we'll talk about in a second. Your assets went from about $3.7 million, almost 3.8 to about 5.1. So you had a very good year on the asset side of the equation. Like everybody else, stock market. I know my team was very frustrated to keep looking at the numbers, going, nobody can earn that much money because everyone's coming in at 25 and 30% returns from, June to June. And that's real. So, everybody, we have to make that clear. These numbers are kind of meaningless in a municipal context. They are technically GASB numbers, but, financial statement expense, it's not like we're booking earnings and going, hey, everyone's going to get a big bonus because our earnings per share went up or down. So it's not a terribly meaningful number. The service cost were probably the number I would address you to is that's the value of benefits being earned during the year by your active employees. So, Johnny or Mary make $50,000 a year and they earn a benefit payable in retirement as a medical benefit. You guys contributed $350,000 to the trust, which is very good. We'll talk about that a little bit later, why hopefully that's going to keep going up over time. Net OPEB expense, not terribly meaningful again. And the discount rate, which is the interest rate we use to bring all those future payments from now until the end of time back to today, went from 5.25 to 5.26. So a very meaningful 1/100 of 1%, which decreases your liabilities by all of $120,000. So this is just, what the math is. Due to an actuarial standards of practice, so every profession has certain standards we're supposed to follow. They've changed some guidance on how we should reflect people after they reach Medicare eligibility in terms of what that shape of that aging curve should be, like how much more in cost does an 85-year-old have versus a 75 and a 65-year-old. So the slope of that curve changed, which adds $5.1 million to the liabilities. Here's the key thing I say is over and over again. None of this changed the actual cost of the plan. If the discount rate went to 3% or went to 20%, the cost of the plan is the benefit payments you actually make. If we assume that older people are going to use more medical services than younger people, they may or may not. That's an assumption that we make. The actual costs are going to be the actual costs. So assumptions are not really, they're numbers that go on your financial statement. But again, I don't get too hung up on those because those are not real dollars. Those are assumed dollars. So they just reflect when the number hits your financial statement. We're talking about those assumptions. We have the interest rate that we spoke about. That's how we bring all those dollars back to today. How long do people stay? Do they leave after 1 year, 2 years, 5 years? When they make it to retirement age, what year do they retire? Do they go at 55, 60, 65, 70? They make it to retirement, they elect to retire. What's the probability they actually elect to take benefits? It's not guaranteed they're going to take benefits. Will they cover a spouse? And then right now we have a more complicated future forecast of what healthcare costs look like. But long story short, it works out to be about a 4.5% increase per year. It's a complicated model reflecting GDP and when we hit certain thresholds about healthcare as a percentage of GDP, and a lot of things go into it. But short answer, when you boil it all down, it gets to about 4.5%. In terms of the benefits you offer comprehensive medical to your retirees as well as a $4,000 life policy. Right now, the active single plan average is about $928 a month, and the Medicare supplement's about $399. The cost question everyone always asks is, well, how's that compare? Honestly, you're pretty much right in line with where your peers are. That's not really any higher or any lower than what I see in other places. So it's not like you're being cheap, but nor is it you're giving away the store. I mean, it's a fairly standard plan in terms of what we see out there. And the always other question is, okay, we're funding. How do we compare against everybody else? Well, you guys are a little over 4% funded. So you have 33% that are less than 1, so you're way better than they are. You got 77% that are less than 10. So you're solidly, right around the middle, probably about the halfway point in terms of where people sit. So, compared to your peers, by half or better, half or worse. So then we said, another way of looking at it, let's look at a couple of towns, cities that are near you of, comparable size and demographics. So if I compare you to Everett, they're using a 3.25 discount rate because they're not as well funded as you are. They're only 248. Newburyport's at 0.88 and Wareham's at 1.63. Because of those things, they have lower discount rates. The more money you fund and the more aggressively you invest those funds, you get to use a higher discount rate, which therefore means you get to show a lower liability on your balance sheet. Now, we can argue whether it should or shouldn't be that way. In corporate America, it is definitely not that way. But these are the municipal financial statement rules, and these are what we have to follow. So that's the way in which we calculate the discount rate. So you look at your service cost that I spoke about, that Johnny or Mary making $50,000 a year, they're basically earning $3,800 a year in terms of deferred compensation as a medical benefit payable in retirement. That $118 million net liability, which is the liability less the assets, is that 4% funded ratio. And then some measurements that some people have asked about. So what's our liability as a percentage of EQV? And other people want to know what's is net levy limit. Well, again, compared to your peers locally, you're far better than they are. Compared to the statewide average, you're a little bit better on the EQV and you're a little bit worse than the levy limit. So again, you're pretty much right around the median. You're not too far off in either direction. Your benefit payments about $7,000 per retiree, a little bit less than some of your neighbors, about 10% higher than the statewide average. But let's also be real. You guys are, near the Boston metro area. Your costs are going to be higher than somebody, say, out in the Berkshire. That's just math. Demographics that we all know. So, that's why I try and show some people that are in your same general neighborhood to give you some better idea. And that service cost we spoke about of the $3,800 per person, that does vary based on what department you're in. So the ones I mainly draw you to is, say, public safety, which are going to be a little over $4,000 a person, which makes sense because they tend to retire earlier and they have shorter careers. So therefore, the liability has to be compressed into a shorter period of time. So you have to earn it over a shorter period. Therefore, it's higher per year. General government tends to be lower because they tend to work a longer career. So again, this is what it is. I know this one's a little bit smaller, but again, this is just showing over the next 40 years kind of what's supposed to happen. The big thing I guess I would draw your attention to is, column VI, which is the excess payments, the funding. And by around 2030, when the pension system is fully funded, the concept is you guys are going to redeploy those savings over to OPEB to work on getting this fully funded. That is really why you get to use a 5.26% discount rate. If you were not, agreeing to do that, your discount rate would be closer to about 2.5% to 3%. Instead of a $123 million liability, it would be closer to about a $180 to $190 million liability. So by virtue of, making the policy that you're going to redeploy those savings in 2030 and beyond, that allows you to lop about $60 to $70 million off your balance sheet. Now, again, I may not agree with the math in terms of how GASB has set this up, but these are the rules that they've set up and these are the rules we're following. So, agreeing to do that is a very beneficial thing from the town's financial statement, especially when you're dealing with the rating agencies and stuff. It shows them that you see the problem, you're addressing the problem, and you have a plan to get out from it. And when you look at it, by a little between 2050 and 2055, this becomes fully funded, much like the pension does. So again, you have a pathway to get both of those two albatrosses on your balance sheet off your balance sheet. So again, there's a pathway. It's going to take time, to be honest, but there is a pathway to get there. And so, I know I was quick because I want to be respectful of everybody's time, and I know you're a little behind schedule. But questions, comments, concerns, things that can help?
Are there any questions from anybody on the board? Or comments? Thank you very much for this this update. It's certainly an important and sizable issue. Once you understand what OPEB is, you really begin to appreciate it's very important to town employees to have be sure that their health insurances and their health needs are covered in retirement. And by the same token, we want to be sure that we're not burdening our finances, and that we're doing everything we can, like the idea that we would redeploy the pension, when we're finished funding the pension fund, then we'll, use that for OPEB. That was a good decision. And so if there are no comments and no questions, I would thank you. Stacy, is there anything else we need to focus on?
No, I think just possibly in the future, actually adopting the policy to redirect the funding would be a good idea. That way it's in writing and it's a policy. Of course, any board in the future can change that policy, but if we ingrain it in the practices now, it would probably be more difficult to change down the road, but that's something that we can work on in the future. And I want to thank Parker. Their firm's excellent. They are very responsive. They're very timely with their information, and I appreciate all the hard work. And we'll get your bill paid as soon as possible.
No worries at all. We appreciate working with you guys. You guys are great. You get we need, and obviously we got a team that does all this stuff. So I'm the guy who sits up here and does all this stuff. There's a team of people to make these things happen. It's not just me. So I appreciate all you guys do. I appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yeah, Marion.
Yeah, if I could, I think we should, no, I don't have a question for Elmore. I think, thank you for the presentation. But I think for us, if we could, I think we've discussed that policy enough, and we've talked to FinCom and they agree with it. So I think we could maybe in a meeting soon adopt that policy. And then, if we take a practice on the board's presentation to town meeting, just like we do with the reserve policy, right? And we say where we stand with the reserve policy, we can also say where we stand with this policy. Then it becomes harder and harder for future boards to change that policy because it's become ingrained also at town meeting that we're going to do that. And in the end, they're the ones who are going to have to fund it. So,
Right.
Yeah, I can work with Stacy to put something together for upcoming agenda.
Great, thank you. Let's just do that, yeah. Thank you both, okay.
Okay.
Thanks. So I wanted to get moving and go ahead on the appointments. And I see from the attendees that we have the 3 students here who are seeking appointment to the Climate Action Committee for the 1 student position. And if they could be elevated. The Climate Action Committee has a student position every year. And it's an opportunity for students to not only learn a little bit about how town governments work and local decision making, but also pursue their interest in climate action and the environment. We have 3 candidates for the 1 position: Zoe Coleman, Tapas Gopala Krishna, and Adam Lubominsky. And I apologize if I mispronounced anybody's name. I wish we could appoint all 3 of you. You all sound very capable and motivated from the materials that you submitted to us. But why don't we just, let you verbally talk to us for a minute and let us know about your interest in this. And just to go in alphabetical order, let's maybe hear from Zoe first.
Hi, my name is Zoe. I'm currently a senior in high school, and I'm really interested in this position because I want to go into environmental studies and public policy. I'm currently a member of my school's Harvard Model Congress, so I've been really interested in public policy in general, and I love this town. I have so much passion for everyone in it, and I really want to become a bigger part of it. I'm also currently taking environmental studies, so the things that I'm learning in that class, I can definitely apply to my job if accepted in this internship. And I think this is just an amazing opportunity that I'd be lucky to get. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Zoe. Now, Tapas, if you can help me just learn how to pronounce your name first, and then please tell us about your interest.
It's Tapas Gopalakrishna.
Okay, thank you.
So yeah, I'm Tapas. I'm a longtime Winchester resident. I have, so to put things in context, the tree on page 21 of the Climate Action Plan is the very tree I climbed when I was 3 years old. So I've basically been here my entire life. So I am also very fond of Winchester. And my main interest in climate action, I guess, began in 2019. Greta Thunberg had just given her famous "How dare you" speech, and of course I thought it was great. And whenever someone bought a long plane ticket or got a gas guzzling car or something, like my friends and I would put on our best Greta attitude and go, "How dare you!" And so that I guess kind of started as a joke, but I've come a long way since then. And every time I would say that, over time, I started thinking more about, like, more seriously. And in the past 2 years, I've had some real achievements and experience in fighting climate change. For example, I convinced my family to choose an electric stove over a gas stove, and I convinced them to install a heat pump instead of using the oil-based heating system that was already in the house. And according to the 2019 Climate Action Plan, mine is only one of 26 households which have a heat pump installed, which is kind of crazy to me. Like, that's really low. And I would want to see what I can do to increase that number. And one thing I'm proud of, as for the last 2 years, my household has only generated 3 pounds of trash per 8 weeks, which is less than half a pound per week. And one of the goals in the Climate Action Plan is to reduce waste disposal by 30% by 2030 and 90% by 2050. But I'm confident that, like, my family used to throw a whole lot of trash, and now it's just so little. So I'm confident that Winchester can get to 90% reduction a lot sooner. And if I were on the committee, I would like to see what I can do to make a lot more households in Winchester conscious of this, because it's not that hard. You just like get another trash can and make sure you put things in the right place.
Mhm.
And as a student, also, I'd like to increase student involvement with climate action as much as possible. For example, like middle and elementary school students could be advocates for change, because at the household level, they can be very persuasive. And so there's a lot of specific goals that I'm interested in the climate action plan. And I hope that as a member of the committee, I can help our town reach these goals and become a model town for climate action. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And Adam.
Hi, my
Tell us
name
a
is
little bit.
Ad.
Go ahead.
Hi, my name is Adam. I'm a rising 10th, I'm a 10th grader at Winchester High School. My goal on the Climate Action Board is to also connect with my community. My goal is to bring my community along with us as we transition from our traditional methods to a more climate-friendly approach. So my goals would be through volunteering opportunities with our community. I have experience in this with my town and school. In 8th grade, I was McCall's Project 351 ambassador, which was a youth leadership program. And I was able to successfully host 2 clothing drives for our town. I also have volunteered at Right Lock Farm, and I have lots of experience with technology and WinCam and recording software. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. So as I said, I wish we could appoint all 3 of you, but I'm sure that you guys will all, whoever is not appointed, will find a way to contribute and will stay involved in this important issue. And I'm really excited that you all want to be on the Climate Action Committee and stay involved. So does anyone have a nomination? Anyone on the board? Any thoughts?
Susan, if I could.
Yeah.
I want to thank Zoe, Adam, and Tapas for being here tonight. 3 exceptional candidates. We were fortunate to get some information, some resumes about each of you, and each of you are so impressive in your backgrounds. Tapas, someday maybe you can come to a meeting and show us how you do a Rubik's Cube blindfolded and do it in less than 2 minutes. I'm pretty impressed with that. And Adam, all your work with Eagle Scouts, and Zoe, all your employment experience, all fantastic stewards of our community. And we're very fortunate to have the 3 of you apply. Unfortunately, we only get to appoint 1 of you. And, my understanding is that Zoe's a senior, and Tapas and Adam are both sophomores. So you have a couple more opportunities to apply, where Zoe, will be brightening her horizons next year somewhere outside of Winchester. So my recommendation to the board would be to appoint Zoe to this committee this year and give her the opportunity as a senior. And I would encourage both Adam and Tapas to stay active as you are and apply again next year where you might have seniority in the process. So that would be my recommendation. But all excellent candidates. Thank you all for what you do for the community. It's fantastic to see, youth engaged and volunteer in so many areas of the community. So thank you.
I'll second the motion for Zoe and also for Rich's comments. Thank you all so much for coming. It's really great to see such amazing applicants. And I'm wondering too, Beth, if we can have a discussion at future meetings of how to kind of increase the student involvement in climate action, because we have such amazing candidates, and it actually does make sense to, in another way, have some younger students that can stay with some of our projects that take a while. And so I would love for us to find a way for Adam and Tapas to be a part of climate action in a formal way, to be honest, not just in an unofficial way. So, but just wanted to extend my appreciation and thank you to all of you. And I know that was a very long way to second a motion, but it's but thank you.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I just want to thank all three of you for applying and for all the work that you're putting into this. And I agree with Mike that if we can find a way to maybe add another member to CAAC or some other way that can be involved, especially with climate action, where the long-term effects are going to hit, our youth need to be involved now because they're going to be the ones that are going to bear the brunt of what we're going through. So, so absolutely agree. But I agree. I think Zoe Coleman should be appointed, given that she's a senior. And I know we're going to see Adam and Tapas again here. And if you follow our meetings, which I know they're extremely interesting to follow, you will know that usually we appoint somebody when they come in for the second time. So I encourage you to please come back and apply.
So it sounds like we have a consensus for Zoe this time. So thank you, Zoe. Welcome to the Climate Action Committee, and hope we'll hear from all three of you in further meetings and further developments. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
We have one other appointment for the Board of Voter Registrars. This is a committee that exists, or a board exists under a statute that that says that the composition of the board should reflect the distribution of registered voters in the town. And there are 4 members. There's the town clerk by virtue of her office, and then 3 other members. Right now, 2 of the members are from the Republican Party and 1 is from the Democratic Party, or appointed by the Town Democratic Committee. Checking the voter rolls at this point, the distribution of registered voters between the 2 major parties is 11% Republican and 29% Democrat. So with this appointment, the composition of the board is going to shift from 2 Republicans and 1 Democrat to 2 Democrats and 1 Republican. We just need to be sure every time there's a vacancy, every time a term expires, that we check the voter rolls and be sure that the composition of the board reflects the composition of registered voters in the town. We have a memo from Mary Ellen that indicates that to fill this vacancy, the Town Democratic Committee has nominated Bob Colt, who I think is a member of the Town Democratic Committee, and that he's qualified. So it seems like that's pretty clear cut, and we should go ahead and appoint Mr. Colt. But Mary Ellen, do you have anything else to add?
No, you did a great job on the recap. We did have just a little bit of delay on this due to myself taking a little time off. So thank you for that. I appreciate it. Yes, and I spoke to Mr. Colt just last week, and he's very excited to join and continue to make our improvements to the elections process. You know, we're doing a lot with early voting, vote by mail. And he's been a member of the Democratic Town Committee for quite some time. And so I welcome him. And we basically just seek your support as the motion is written in the memo.
And so I move that we appoint Robert Colt, Registered Democrat, to the Board of Registrar for the Town of Winchester for a term to expire March 2024.
Thank you.
So there's a motion and a second, and we have to do a roll call vote. Mike?
Yes.
Rich?
Yes.
Mariano?
Yes.
And I vote yes as well. Thanks, Mary Ellen, for all the legwork
Great.
on this.
And welcome back, Mary Ellen.
Thank you. And I'm going to stay on until the next discussion for the special town meeting. Okay, folks?
Right, thank you very much.
Okay.
So I want to go back and be sure that we take up the energy management vehicle policy that I believe Susan McPhee wants to present. This is something that has been deferred over the summer a couple of times, and I want to be sure we get to this tonight. Looks like Susan is with us. Susan, you want to go ahead and present this? This has to do with the Energy Management Committee and the town's policy when the town buys vehicles. I'm not sure Susan is coming in.
She may not realize that she's on. Hold on,
Yeah.
I'll send her a
Yeah,
text.
thank you. Apologize for the delay and the dead air there, everyone. We did go over with our executive session, I'm sorry. Hi, Susan. Sorry for the delay. Thanks for joining us.
No worries. Thanks very much for making time to consider our EV policy. There, I have two very brief.
You're kind of freezing and coming in and out. Are you trying to share your screen or?
How about if I just share it?
Yeah, Patty, thank you. Yeah, Susan, Patty's going to share the two slides. They're very straightforward, great. Shouldn't take long. And if you could just, you know, walk us through this.
Great. Carbon goals and getting consideration. We're doing a good job on buildings. We're using cleaner energy. We're reducing our energy use. So as a result, the vehicle category has gone from a much smaller percentage to an increasingly large footprint. So currently vehicles are roughly carbon footprint, which is a big increase. And that tracks with what's going on in the state and the country because it's easier to shrink the built environment with lots of small things. So the good news is obviously with electric vehicles becoming more prevalent, we can make progress on this because we don't have energy management has been talking about this for a while, and we wanted to try to bring something to the board's attention so that the town could have a policy that will work with our vehicle assortment. We're not going to start plowing with sedans anytime soon. Energy management voted in June, and energy management would request that the board pass this so that as it is logical, as vehicles become available that are appropriate for the different functions that the town has, that lens could be how we approach. We can't project now when we're going to have an electric dump truck or front end loader. That's going to be a long time. But if we have to buy a sedan, obviously that's going to be a nearer term thing. So this was language that energy management could fit our missions, and we would respectfully request that the board consider voting this language for the town.
Great, thank you, Susan. This does give the board some, or the town, excuse me, gives the town some flexibility about just having a preference for electric vehicles, plug-in hybrids, or other, whatever seems to be available or be affordable. And I just would like to open it up to the board members to see if they have any questions or comments. Anybody? Mike.
I just want to say thank you, Susan. Appreciate this. Certainly something I support and happily vote for it. So thank you.
I have one other bit of background information. I worked with who developed a spreadsheet tool that the town can use team that just projects out, so this is great. We can have the goal of buying EVs, but when are we going to have an EV dump truck or street sweeper? Street sweeper is sooner. That can, so capital say, oh, well, a front-end loader, we need one in 2026, but there might be one that could be affordable in perhaps 2027 or 2028. Anyway, so we're trying to develop not just a policy, but also some
So Susan, you're kind of breaking up on and off. Maybe if your video went off, we could, maybe the Zoom would handle your verbal comments a little better, please. But I hear that you have also developed a tool to help help in the town's decision making. Maybe to wait a year or go ahead and purchase something because the wait for an electric, whatever it will be, a dump truck will be another 5 years. I think that sounds very sensible. That would be great to have.
Develop this tool. I've shared it with DPW, and then in turn, I believe Green Energy Consumers Alliance, who runs the Drive Green website, will take this tool and then try to keep it updated so that municipalities can go on into the future with in 2028 to 20 really heavy equipment. So we're just trying to help with the planning.
Okay, any other questions from anybody on the board?
So I don't have a question, but I just want to say I also support this policy, and thank you for Susan for presenting this and everybody who's worked on it, and also looking forward to the tool and the spreadsheet. That way we can both have the policy as well as actually implement the policy and start figuring out how we can get more electric vehicles or hybrid vehicles in our fleet.
All right, so I guess I'd be looking for a motion at this point to adopt this policy.
So I move that we adopt a policy that, with all things being equal, the town of Winchester shall preferentially purchase or procure electric vehicles, plug-in hybrid electric vehicles, or other highly efficient vehicles.
Second.
Okay, I hear a second. So we need to do a roll call vote. Rich?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
Mariano?
Yes.
And I vote yes as well. Thank you very much, Susan McPhee. This is great.
Thank you, everybody. I really appreciate your support.
All right, so looking down the agenda, and I believe we are now ready to talk about the Eversource license agreement. Beth, can you
absolutely
lead us off on that?
Do you want to bring Keenan in?
Keenan, is anyone else with you?
Yeah, I believe Mike Hager and Miles Lang Kennedy are joining.
I see them.
Okay. Well, if I can start, do you want me to start?
I'll just give a quick overview before you get going.
Yep.
So as the board's aware, Eversource is currently constructing the 345 kV transmission line through the town of Winchester. The work includes work on Washington Street and Cross Street. At this time, they are asking the town to utilize a portion of Washington Street Park which is right across the street from the Winchester Hospital facility at 620 Washington Street as lay-down space. That space would be used for their request is for the duration of time which they are working on Washington Street, which would likely go into next year. And we have a draft agreement available that I'm happy to share when the time comes, but I believe Keenan might have a few words he wanted to say as well.
Yes, thank you. To start off, I'm representing Eversource on this project for the land, the use of that land at Washington Street and Sunset Road. Obviously we've been working on this for quite a while, and Michael Hager is here. He might be able to give us a little more background on where the project stands and what exactly we'd like to do at this specific location in terms of storing equipment and so forth. So if Michael, if you want to join in, or maybe Miles can give the update, and then Michael can join in and answer questions. So if one of you wouldn't mind starting, that'd be great.
So this is Mike. I'll be happy to take that. So I'm Mike Hager, the project manager for Eversource. As Beth indicated, we're trying to use that parcel of land, or a portion of that land, for two purposes. The first is give us a place to park some piece of equipment like the excavator at the end of the day, rather than on the side of a road or at an intersection, since there's limited spaces along Washington Street between this location and Cross Street, where our work will take place, to park equipment and maybe store some materials at the end of the workday. And at this particular location, we do have what we call a jack and bore. We have to tunnel underneath the river there. And so we need to excavate some large pits on either end, and that'll take up some space. And we have dewatering equipment, and again, the equipment we'll be using to perform that work. So by having this space available to us, we'll be able to shift the work zone a little further off the roadway, so that we can ensure we have 2 lanes of traffic at all times, instead of taking up one lane of traffic while we're doing the work, or for extended periods. And it also give us a space, rather than lining up all of our dewatering equipment and tanks and other equipment in a limited space within a roadway by the sidewalk there. So it kind of gets it out a little further away from the line of traffic in that area. Timing wise, we were hoping to get through the Washington Street work by the end of this construction season. We're a little bit behind at this point, so that will probably roll over into the spring, but we would certainly like to use this through that period of time, and then we would go back and restore the property the way it was when we left.
I can share the document here for if the board has any questions. So our counsel, Anderson Krieger, drafted a license agreement that was reviewed by Eversource. There's a couple points here for the decision for the board. So the original document was drafted just to have the laydown area available during the jack and bore operations. Eversource has requested that to be extended to include the installation of duct bank on Washington Street, which staff is agreeable to. So the recommended language is the addition here in yellow. Second, they've asked for that work. Originally, we were suggesting that work would start once they received the street opening permit for the jack and bore work. Their request is for it to start concurrent with their existing street opening permit, which again, staff is agreeable to. So that's the language here in yellow. And then finally, there is some recommended mitigation for this use of this area, which includes resodding of the area, irrigation, and tree planting in the Exhibit A, which I'd be happy to share if that would be helpful. And with that, I think that's a quick summary. Happy to take any questions.
Well, I think we saw an earlier version of this before. I think that, thank you for working on it and, making sure that it's tailored to what we need and to ensure that that Eversource has a place to store some of the larger equipment rather than leaving it on the roads sometimes. It sounds much more, much better for the town and for people driving around not to have that equipment stored off of the roads. And I'm grateful that Eversource is willing to do some of the mitigation work and the tree planting there, so that when it's all finished, that park is still, it's still as nice as it is now, and functions to sort of protect the river a little bit, a buffer between the Washington Street and the Aberjona. Any questions or any comments from board members?
Yeah, so I mean, my comment is that, having reviewed this previously and now also for anybody, for the public listening, is that we're not, here we're not approving for additional street openings or additional work for Eversource to do, but what we're approving is for them to be able to put equipment out of the road so that overnight it's not on the roads, and that that area will, after the work is done, be in as good or better condition than it is now. So I think this is net positive for the town.
I don't see any other hands raised. So I guess we would be ready for a motion.
So I move that we approve the agreement between the town of Winchester, the municipal corporation acting by and through the select board, and NStar Electric Company doing business as Eversource Energy, a Massachusetts corporation and electrical company, as detailed in our packet.
Second.
Roll call vote. Mike?
Yes.
Rich?
Yes.
Mariano?
Yes.
And I vote yes as well.
Great.
So
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And thank you, Eversource, for coming to explain this for us.
Certainly.
So we've now gotten to the point where we're on the agenda for we're at the item for the Waterfield Lot Development, and then discussion of a potential special town meeting. Just as a bit of background, as many of you already know, the board appointed a task force to develop a set of findings and recommendations and assign priority to 6 factors or 6 issues around the agreement that the town reached before with Civico for mixed income development on the Waterfield lot. And at the board's last meeting, we extended the due date for that final report to October 14th to allow them some extra time for discussion and to finalize their final report to the board. And tonight we're taking up a discussion around extending some scheduling going forward to allow the board time to negotiate and allow, after there's presumably a renegotiated agreement with Civico, to allow for adequate information sharing and discussions and informed review by the Finance Committee, the town meeting members themselves, and the public. And one of the things we're considering is pushing the timetable out, having a special town meeting in order to allow for potentially a joint meeting between the select board and Finance Committee, potentially, actually, definitely, it's something I feel very strongly we should have and we've been talking about, is having some sort of a public information session or a hearing that would be open to town meeting members and the publics, just to understand all of the details and especially the finances of this potential agreement. before they're being called upon to vote on it. I should also mention that the Finance Committee is an independent town committee and exists under the charter, and our purview as the select board is really only what we can do as a board to facilitate the process and to make sure that there's adequate time for discussion and processing all the complicated facts. And it seems like more time is just a basic step. So we will allow public comment on this for about 15 minutes. I should say that in public comment is an opportunity to speak. It's not necessarily a dialogue with any members of the board, and that we would ask you to keep your comments brief and concise, maybe 2 to 3 minutes. And the intention behind that is to allow everybody who wants to speak a chance to speak. We did get a letter from signed by a number of town meeting members, and I understand some of them might want to just provide a verbal comment now. So if you raise your hand, we can elevate you to speak. And I see one hand, which is Carol Savage. So thank you, Carol, for joining us. Why don't you go ahead?
Hi, thank you so much for holding this public comment on this important project. And I will try to be as brief as I can be. I was one of the 53 town meeting members who signed the letter. And you have addressed some of the points that we did ask for in the letter. So I'm just going to try to condense. If I go beyond what was in the letter, I may or may not be representing points of view of the 53 folks who signed it. So I'm just trying to consolidate some of those thoughts because, as you said, the select board puts this Waterfield proposal forward to the town. And what we're focused on, and what we were focused on in our letter as town meeting members who had voted to support the LDA for the Waterfield lot, was the integrity of the process. And both what happened in the past and what is going forward. I'd like to focus on what's going forward, but I did want to address some of the questions that we had about the past. That it is important that the select board and the finance committee come to the floor of town meeting the next go around with an agreed upon set of facts and analyses and a transparent discussion of the debate. It's not necessary that everyone agrees on the path forward, but that we have a respectful, accurate, and valid presentation of the facts and argument in the debate to town meeting as well as to the broader public. The June 22nd Waterfield lot question, which failed by a very narrow margin of 67 votes, required citizens to weigh conflicting information surrounding the vote, and there was some confusion about what was or was not the official stance of the town's finance committee, which had been split in a 7-5 vote in front of town meeting, but that was not what was represented on the Citizens for a Better Waterfield site. Now, I understand it's complicated, and the finance committee has asked us to come to the finance committee's public meeting to ask any questions about that process, either in the past or going forward, and we do intend to do that, so I won't really address the questions that we have for them. But I did want to say to the select board as well that if there should be a majority and a minority point of view on this board, as well as on the finance committee or any other committee having to do with this, that both those points of views be presented in writing or in a report fashion that is transparent to us as town meeting members and available to the public as well as any analyses that go along with that, and that will help foster an informed, rational debate around where we go forward from here. Also, the idea, the spirit behind a joint meeting of select board and FinCom sounds really like a great idea, and a public hearing for any member of the public or town meeting that wants to come to the select board to ask any questions prior to your special town meeting will help foster that kind of discussion and dialogue so we can all be informed. Also, I guess that mostly covers it. So I let anybody else who wants to speak on it. I just really just want to reiterate that, you know, in addition to financial considerations that the appointed Finance Committee recommends to town meeting, Finance Committee is appointed to make recommendations on matters that have financial implication to town meeting, and we do always listen to those, and we would appreciate if there are divergent points of view, again, to get majority and minority reports and well in advance of town meetings, so we all have time as town meeting members to consider those, especially when these meetings are held remotely. It's very hard to have to react to information that's presented to you in a live Zoom call and have to make an important vote like that. So we'd like to ask that you as the select board kind of watch that process and shepherd it, so that if there so that votes of the elected town boards and or appointed boards that are part of the official town government process are represented accurately and fairly to the public as this important decision goes forward. And that respects the time and volunteer hours and energy that a lot of these boards have put into this process for a lot of years. So I thank you. I thank you for the time on this meeting, and I would ask anybody else who's on this that was part of that wants to speak as well. There was one person who had to leave, so if there's time at the end, she gave me what she wanted to say, and I'll ask to come back on and represent her, but for those who are on the call, I will step aside. And thank you for, again, holding this meeting.
Thank you very much, Carol. I see that Pamela Court has her hand raised to speak. And we have sufficient time, so if we could go ahead and elevate Pam Court, that'd be nice. Pam, I think. Patty, has Pam
Lost her.
Oh, okay. Yep.
She was there and I let her in, and then she wasn't here. So is there anyone else that anyone in the audience attendees that would like to speak, please raise your hand. She's been disconnected before, so if she comes back on, I can bring her on.
Okay. Well, I don't see anyone else.
Shall I speak for the one who wanted to?
I was going to say, yeah, Carol, why don't you go ahead and identify the person if that's okay.
More of me, yes. No, I'm happy to do. So it was Sally Dale, town meeting member from Precinct 7, and she had this point that she wanted to add, and she regrets she wasn't able to stay on the call. Just wanted to add, she wanted to add a point having to do with the Waterfield project, that Winchester is one of 175 communities. I'm reading her comment. One of 175 communities in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts that have been designated MBTA communities, and that Section 18 of Massachusetts General Law 40A requires that every MBTA community create a multifamily resident development district with a minimum density of 15 units per acre, within a half-mile of transit stations suitable for children and not age restricted. Towns that don't comply with this requirement will be ineligible to receive funds from the Housing Choice Initiative, from local capital project funds, and from the Mass Works Infrastructure Development Program. Town meeting had voted to designate the Waterfield lot for this very purpose. On behalf of Sally.
Thank you. Thank you for reading that on behalf of Sally Dale. I think I see Pam Court has now joined us. Pam, are you ready to go ahead?
I am, and I'm not sure what happened. It happened the last time. I got booted out somehow.
Technology, yeah.
I want to thank you very much for the time and the effort that you put into this, and it's been a long and a grueling process, and so it is with great respect for that time that I ask that when you are considering the report from the Waterfield Task Force, that before they submit their final draft, that perhaps some guidance can be issued from you to remind them of the scope of what it is that they were tasked to do in the first place. I've read several of the drafts in there. I've watched the meetings. I've expressed some concerns to you earlier about their what their baseline knowledge is and continued questions on things which should be established at this point. And one of those things that should be established at this point is that the referendum was very narrow in what it did. It overturned a warrant article that was to endorse the LDA agreement. It was not to rewrite an RFP. It was not to solicit for new proposals from developers. It was not to significantly change the scope of what is and isn't going to be market rate or affordable units. It was simply to renegotiate the LDA and to move forward as if that last warrant article had not been approved. It was not to reverse any prior town meeting decisions. And I also signed that letter asking for more communication and more transparent communication, and in the spirit of what Carol Savage had said, which is that there have been a number of elected and appointed boards in our town, official boards that have put in an enormous amount of work. I would hope that this entire process shows a level of respect and deference for that work and effort that was put in, that things were considered, priorities were considered for this project that were not only the bottom line and getting the most money out of the project, but things that would make this town a better place, things that would make this town comply more with 40B, things that would make our downtown more vibrant and keep with the values of this town as were expressed in the master plan, a document written by the town people. So I would ask that this process continue to respect the voices of the members of the community who contributed to the master plan and the voices of every member of every board that put in an enormous amount of work on this, and that our boards continue to work tirelessly to make sure that information is transparent and accurate. Thank you.
Thank you, Pam. I think we have time for one more person, and I think I see Heidi DeLeo has raised her hand. I think I see you on the board here to speak.
Yeah, I got kicked out. Sorry, I would be talking a lot more, but I'm losing my voice. But I feel like it's very important for me to say that I'm disappointed in the lack of involvement asked for from the downtown storefront and retail businesses. I think a lot of focus has been on businesses that are not as necessarily going to be impacted, excuse me, as the downtown businesses.
Mm-hmm.
I have not been approached by anybody on the task force seeking my opinion. I know that there are others in the on Thompson Street, for example, who haven't heard from the task force. And I think that I reiterate what Pam and Carol said, is that the task force needs to be reminded about what their charge was. It wasn't to send them back to do an RFP all over again or raise money to build a garage or whatever the case is. It was to review all of the data that's available and then present to you so that you all could make a better decision. So I just, again, I really am disappointed that small retail business is not represented adequately at the town level. Thanks.
Thank you, Heidi. I think that's all the people we have who have raised their hands, and pretty much all the time we have for this tonight. I want to thank everybody who signed the letter and for everybody who spoke tonight, for participating and for bringing your concerns forward. I'm sure there are other people with similar concerns, and that you're, you know, I thank you for your involvement, and I think all of you are town meeting members. I thank you for your service as town meeting members. So for the board, we've been discussing this, you know, the Waterfield development for a long time, and I think we recognized that as the task force was meeting and as things were progressing, that looking at having the LDA approved by fall town meeting in order to allow Civico, the presumed developer, allow them enough time to, you know, get their stuff, get all of the work that they have to do to actually begin getting permits and, you know, carrying on the project without losing a lot of time. We needed to stretch out the schedule to allow for review by finance committee and you know, a joint meeting with finance committee, if that makes sense, and also some sort of public information session or hearing. So we did ask, we had town management go ahead and ask the town clerk to sort of map out what a special town meeting after the end of the fall town meeting might look like. And I think Mary Ellen is here to present that as an option.
You're muted, Mary Ellen. Would you like me to share your sheet?
Oh, sure, you could do that. Do you want to do that now, Susan, or did you have other items to discuss under the article number 3, Waterfield?
Under Waterfield? We did discuss to some extent in executive session, and it appears to me that the members of the board don't really have any questions, and maybe that we, you know, we just sort of understand what the options are and take that into consideration.
Sure. Patty, if you could share the memo, that would be great. And I will just review with you. As Susan mentioned, I had been asked to just sort of put together a timeline to give you some options so that the task force and the boards involved would have a little bit more time to prepare for the level of communication that I think everyone is in agreement would be best for the community. So I picked essentially the tradition of a special town meeting is always held on a Monday. So I picked the first Monday in December and just sort of mapped that out based on our requirements under the Massachusetts General Law, as well as the Code of Bylaw regarding the timing of the publications for the warrant for the town meeting to receive it at their homes. So you have before you the December 6th, which means we've got to mail the warrant no later than the 17th of November to be in the hands of the people for the 22nd, which meets that requirement of the 14 days. This, if we chose to do it as early as December 6th, we technically, staff would still be in the throes of sort of finishing up the town meeting for the fall session. I will be typing minutes, and Stacy and the financial people will be getting the recap ready. So December 6th is a close and busy time for us, but certainly it's the pleasure of the board what you decide. As we move further into December, it lightens up a little bit for the staff to be able to, you know, provide more support to the elected officials clerically. And, you know, it also gives the task force probably for December 6th, it's going to give the task force maybe 2 to 3 weeks of time And then as you move out to the 13th, it would give them maybe 3 to 4 weeks of additional review. I did hear someone mention something about a public hearing. If the task force, which I haven't read the charge, but if the task force has a requirement to do the public hearing, I wasn't aware of that, so I didn't put a public hearing into this schedule. So was that more of just a public informational session? Could someone answer that, or is it more of a statutory public hearing?
It's more of a public information session. There's no requirement for the task force to have a hearing.
Okay.
But you know, the town manager's hearing is kind of a late and abbreviated format for something like this, and we thought maybe a session just devoted to the Waterfield lot would make sense for the public and for town meeting members to have their questions answered.
Okay. All right. So hypothetically, if you did pick, say, December 13th, the town manager could probably do a public hearing or public informational session, maybe that December 6th, and then that would still give the task force probably close to 3 weeks, if you know, not putting it on the regular town meeting warrant. I'm not sure, haven't been privy to a lot of the conversation on Waterfield, so I'm not sure if 3 weeks is enough time for you folks. I'll leave that up to you.
Yeah.
But I mean, we'll handle it. You know, the new year comes quite fast and furious in the clerk's office. We're really busy with the census, with the nomination papers for the town election begin right after the first of the year. And we do sort of our clerical dog licenses and customer service. So, I mean, I can do a town meeting. We can do a town meeting for you whenever you need it. You know, that, let's be real about that. We'll do whatever fits for the board and for the town. But that just gives you a basic idea and a framework on what the timing is for publication.
Thank you.
Susan, do you want me to quickly just review the costs, or do you want to have some talk before we talk about the cost? Or
I think you can go ahead and just review the cost, because that's something that everybody should know as well.
Okay, so I'm assuming a remote special town meeting, just simply because we're deeper into the winter season, and I'm sure the Board of Health, although I didn't ask, I'm sure they would still recommend a remote meeting due to the time of the year and the flu season. We always have a printing expense to do any of our warrants. We have to mail the warrants first class, so I roughly have $4,650 for the mailing. We have the printing of the job. It's a small warrant, so it's roughly $2,000. We would have to hire Options Technologies, the folks that have been doing our support for us on town meeting, and that's roughly $5,000 for one night. And then just some basic IT and clerical staff overtime to manage the Zoom and things like that at $750. So it would be roughly $12,400 to conduct a special town meeting remotely.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Anybody have any questions?
Mary Ellen, I have a question. Just there's a note at the bottom here that says all motions and background materials has to be in final form no later than November 10th. Is that for either date or for the earlier date?
That's actually for the December 6th date. That's my mistake. I didn't carry it out for you another week. It would be the 17th then for the December 13th meeting. I'm putting that out there just because that's sort of the formal way that we conduct our reviews. So I want to give you sort of the tight worst case scenario. But if legal has been working on this LDA and, you know, Beth is shepherding that along and you folks don't need, you know, an extra week of review, then we can loosen that up a little bit. But traditionally, that's what we allow so that Mina and his crew would have enough time to review it.
And Mary Ellen, I know you want to know sooner rather than later, but when would we, you know, have to let you know on a date?
Yeah, that's my next question.
Let's see. Let me just calculate this. I think if I could know by the end of the second session of town meeting, like maybe November 4th or 5th,
Mhm.
I think that would give us enough time. I mean, are we talking about a lengthy warrant, or are we just talking about a, a simple motion, simple background? Maybe Mina can paint a picture for me on that.
Yeah, thanks, Mina, for sticking around.
No problem. So the motion, the article and the motion, I think would be very simple. Mary Ellen, I think the whole warrant would be less than a page. To Rich's question a moment ago, though, the real issue is how this board feels about the level of finality of the LDA that's going to be voted on. So, I could write the motion today because it's probably going to say the same thing, but what the subject of that motion is the real issue. So that's really your timing issue, I think, for the board.
Okay.
And I don't need a full week to review the one motion. I can promise.
Okay.
It's a lot shorter than that.
Okay.
So thank you, Mary Ellen and Mina.
You're welcome. And just keep me in the know, and I'll build another calendar for you if you decide that there's a different timeline. It just takes, not
Right.
long at all to do. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mary Ellen.
Thank you, Beth. And great job, Beth. Congratulations. Very happy for you.
Thank you.
Take care, folks.
So I thought Mike had his hand up to
Yes, thanks,
to
Susan.
talk about this. Yep.
I was just going to kind of weigh in. I know it's getting late here, but seems like the later date here, the December 13th, is the one that makes the most sense if we're sticking with it, if we're kind of targeting something reasonable. Coming town meeting, kind of extended in the spring pretty long, and it's very demanding on our staff and getting other volunteers to attend meetings. And I would hope with this process, we would really facilitate and encourage precinct meetings to the degree that that's possible after town meeting, and really get people engaged, because the LDA and the ground lease, it's somewhat complicated, and we want to really put our best foot forward for information wise for folks. So just giving my 2 cents.
Yeah, I would agree, Mike. The idea of having precinct meetings makes a lot of sense. You can do those remotely as well. And, multiple years, it's been multiple years now going on that we've been talking about, we need to encourage more precinct meetings, especially on these complicated items.
And I think too that Civico was very willing during the referendum piece to hold information sessions and kind of candidly answer questions for a long period of time. So if that's something that would be helpful too at some point, maybe they would be interested in that.
Yeah, they did do that previously, and it would make sense to do that again if they're willing. I have the sense that, we are, definitely leaning towards a later date in December. I don't feel we have a decision, that we're ready for a decision tonight. I think we need to have another discussion, perhaps in executive session. And we need to put that together. So I guess we'll move on. Thanking everyone who made comments. Please stay tuned. The school central office relocation is something that's going to be put off until the 18th. And so why don't we just quickly take the recycling resolution, if you don't mind, and then we'll move into the warrant articles. Because I think that's something we could do relatively quickly, and then we can dig into the warrant articles and wrap it up. This is a resolution that would speak to some proposed legislation at the state level about producer responsibility to pay for recycling costs. And Mike, this is something you and Presetta brought to me. Would you want to handle this and explain this
Sure.
to everyone?
Yeah, thanks, Susan. I'll be quick on this one. Representative Day has sponsored legislation for extended producer responsibility. And so it's something that kind of caught my attention, and the DEP is really encouraging communities to adopt. So it really is putting the recycling costs, which, as we have seen, become very high for our communities, and in fact, heading beyond solid waste, and saying to whoever the producer is, it could be Amazon, it could be paint company, hey, you need to share in the cost of getting rid of these products once they've been used. So this resolution is more of a general commitment that we have as we're looking to kind of reinvigorate our efforts at the transfer station and kind of re-envision how we've been doing things over the years. So this is a kind of step one, is saying that we're open to extended producer responsibility and really engaging with the DEP in this process moving forward.
So this is in the packet as like page 20. And it really speaks to the just the economics of recycling. You know, we're proposing to some major capital improvements to the transfer station, which would enable more sort of robust like sorting of recyclable materials, and to sort of work in tandem with this idea that different products would have different funding available to carry out the recycling. So maybe the solution here, or maybe the idea here, is for everyone to go ahead and read that resolution. I don't know if everybody had a chance or had any questions about it. I don't know if you're prepared to vote on it. It's just, it would be a resolution that would go, you know, it's directed at the legislature.
Yeah, and it's non-binding, Susan. If you see there that in the draft that's been proposed, I think Presetta or maybe Julia had put in some of our local data, which is important to show that even with this effort that we've been making with the SMART program and really encouraging recycling, that our tonnage really hasn't decreased at all in nearly a decade. So we've got to do better and do more. And I think this is what a lot of communities are seeing. And so I think that's why there's been this renewed commitment towards shifting the responsibility, at least in part, to the producers.
So I'll open it up to other folks on the board. Are you prepared to vote on this? Would you like to think about it a little more? Maybe.
I mean, I read it and I'm prepared to vote in favor of it. I mean, I think, you know, what Mike said, we've been bearing the increasing cost of recyclables at the municipal level. And, you know, so I think that putting those costs at the production where producers have the ability to actually reduce the cost of recycling and thus reduce their cost and reduce our cost is where it makes sense. Doesn't make sense for the cost to be borne by municipal entities that have no way to actually reduce the cost at the production point.
Rich, you have any thoughts?
I agree. Happy to support it.
Yeah, the thing that occurs to me is one of the things that I learned is that I think Maine and perhaps Oregon have legislation along these lines. So we wouldn't be the only ones in the world. And I think the idea is to sort of build some momentum around this nationwide. So I'd be prepared to sign it as well. So I guess I'm looking for a motion to adopt this and then ask the town manager to send it to, I guess, to Mike Day, and you know, that it will go forth into the world.
So moved.
Second.
Roll call vote. Mariano,
Yes.
Mike,
Yes.
Rich,
Yes.
and I vote yes as well. So Mike, thanks for bringing this to our attention.
Thank you, Susan, for adding it on so quickly.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
It seemed to work with the, you know, Climate Action Committee and students and so forth. So I'm glad we could move it along. So that brings us to the warrant articles. And I think Mark is here. We've talked about this a few times. And I think there are just a few to iron out.
Yes, Susan, actually, I've reviewed, I think, all of the articles with the select board, with the exception of number 9, which we had listed as a placeholder. It's the Swan Street, Washington Street property article. And I believe all of the other articles I've reviewed, and I'm happy to answer any questions. Tonight would be looking for a vote to actually issue the warrant, which means we would then send it to the printer basically later this week, and then basically distribute it to the residents at that point. But I'm happy to answer any specific questions, but I believe the vote would be to issue the warrant. Nina, is that the correct language we're looking for here?
Correct, Mark.
Okay.
So this would be to go ahead and put the Swanton and Washington, or Washington and Swanton article on.
That's correct. I have it listed, I believe it's on page 11 under Article 9, and it's just currently in the hard copy you have, or actually, I'm sorry, electronic copy. It just has it as a placeholder. So we'd be inserting the language that was previously provided to the board. Patty could certainly put that up on the screen if you wanted to see that language for tonight's.
Yeah, I think that makes sense.
Session.
Yep.
Patty, are you able to do that for us?
Give me a minute. That was the only one I didn't have ready.
I'm sorry, I didn't give you
okay.
any advance warning. Sorry about that.
That's okay. It'll just take me a sec.
Okay.
Hey, Mark, while she's putting that up there, just on the last page, my middle initial's M, and you can take that out.
Oh,
if
I'm
no
sorry.
one else has an initial there.
Take the M out. Okay.
Take the A out.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
Thanks.
So, and the other thing I would mention is that this warrant does not contain an article for the Waterfield lot, because we were going to put that onto the warrant for a special town meeting.
Correct. That's correct, Susan.
Okay.
And it does have well, Patty's looking for that. It does have the article to supplement the funding on the MBTA project. That was one that we added at the last meeting.
Yes.
Is this
the
it?
That looks right. Very small, but it looks like.
Okay, I'll enlarge it.
I don't have my glasses. I can't.
Thank you, Patty.
Yeah.
So this is a follow-up on the article we had, I guess, is it a year ago, or is it only from the spring time? My concept of time has been ruined.
A year ago, I think, yeah.
It is a year ago. For a taking by eminent domain in order to facilitate redeveloping this parcel at the corner of Washington and Swanton Streets. To transfer it to a private developer, to private owner for presumably some sort of friendly 40B project for mixed income housing. And so this is to supplement the funds to reflect a higher value of the property. So I don't know if we need to actually read it out loud, but I just wanted to be sure that everyone was okay with this language and that this is just for the purposes of the warrant and the purpose of the warrant is to notify the town meeting members and the voters that this is the topic. And then we would develop motions later on. Motion or motions. So we discussed having this in the warrant.
Right. If there's no comments, I move that we issue the warrant as printed with the addition of the article that is being presented now and that we previously reviewed as Article 9.
Second, and also make sure that we take that A out from Rich's middle name.
Right.
I got a note right here.
Susan, if I could, for our benefit, could you also add, could somebody add to that motion, subject to typographical or clerical corrections by staff and council, just in case, because I did notice one missing semicolon. That's on me in this one, but.
Yes, that's always wise to have.
Yes, so I move that we issue the warrant as previously stated and also subject to correction of typographical errors by staff or town council.
Second.
Roll call vote. Mike?
Yes.
Rich?
Yes.
Mariano?
Yes.
And I vote yes as well.
Perfect.
So
Thank you.
that's a wrap for the warrant.
Susan, could I mention one
Yes.
thing on the warrant? I
Yeah.
happy to report that the Capital Planning Committee voted last Wednesday evening to co-sponsor the transfer station article. So that was a good.
Oh, that's a good ad. Thank you.
Yeah, a good ad. Yeah.
All right.
I just wanted to jump in and thank Mark and Nina who put in a ton of work to get us to this point on the warrant. So very much appreciate their efforts to get us here. So it takes a lot behind the scenes to get this seemingly short document put together. So.
Right.
Thank you, Beth.
And Jen Caffarella, who does a lot
Jen
of the,
Caffarella, absolutely.
Yeah,
does a lot of the word
processing.
processing.
It's a good team.
She makes us look good, Mina.
Except for that semicolon, Mina.
Yeah.
Up next.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Finding all my papers. I think that is everything except for the consent agenda. Patty, am I right? Patty and
That's correct.
So I move that we approve the consent agenda as printed on the packet.
Second.
Roll call vote. Mike?
Yes.
Rich?
Yes.
Mariano?
Yes.
And I vote yes as well. So I'll be looking for a motion to adjourn, and we have some scheduling discussions to have, I think, going forward, but I think that's it for tonight.
Move to adjourn.
Second.
Roll call vote. Rich?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
Mariano?
Yes.
And I vote yes as well. Thank you, Mary Ellen, Stacy, Beth, Patty, anybody else who's